Hello, on today's stream, I was just probably going to follow up kind of similar to what I did yesterday with the Cartoon Network villains tier list. This one's going to be a Cartoon Network heroes, or not heroes, Cartoon Network protagonists tier list, now for the main characters. But as you can see, this list is a lot shorter than the other one. I mean, because they could be focusing on all the different central characters of these shows, but I honestly think I'd rather just focus on the most important ones instead. With that being said, give me a second. Get this ready on the other websites. Just a post that I'm doing a stream. Alright, there we go. Actually, just no. 1 second. There we go. Alright. Now, as usual, I'm going to get this started by just putting characters that I don't really know that well down in this bottom tier right here. Oh, before that, I think I actually want to mention first that I also had fun names for these tiers. I think I'm going to start just like doing this from now on. Whenever I make a tier list, just give the tiers fun names. At the bottom, this one's always going to remain uniform because I don't really see a purpose to putting that much effort into it. This one's just uh, don't know slash don't remember. Typical, but whatever. Then we have the other tiers. The bottom tier is should have been a side character. Then we have fine central focus, good in both alignment and quality, the greater good, and then near perfect protagonists. So now, I'm just going to start by just putting all the characters in this, like, don't know, don't remember tier that I have to put down here. Moxie should go here. I've actually never seen the Star Wars Clone Wars shorts. Like, of course, I know of Anakin Skywalker from various pieces of media, but I've actually never seen a significant amount of something with him. I've seen a couple episodes of the 2008 Star Wars The Clone Wars, but not these original shorts. And honestly, with that, I haven't even seen a ton of those ones either. I'm kind of like Star Wars, but if I'm being honest, I'm not the biggest Star Wars like super fan in the world. So beyond that, I don't think I could say that much about. No, I think I remember Reanimated and How Jimmy Said It to rank Dolly. Of course, I know Optimus Prime as a character in general, but I'm not as familiar with the Transformers animated version of him. I mean, I have experienced some Transformers media over the years, but I have never experienced a significant amount of this version. And lastly, let me see who else. Same thing with the annoying orange. Same thing with this character from Mixels. but I think I could rank everyone else beyond that. Okay. Anyway. Something else. Nope, I'm good. I'm good. Alright. Now to rank all these other characters. First two got Space Ghost, specifically from Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I actually watched a decent amount of this like earlier this year, and I think he's a good protagonist. Like, the show is primarily a comedy, of course, because it is like the progenitor of what would later become Adult Swim and that kind of storytelling and the kinds of characters they would have. And he's a very funny character, but also a very simple character. So I don't think I could put him any higher than this, but I do like him and I do like what he brings to the show. George Lowe also does a very good job voice acting. Next we have Dexter from Dexter's Lab, which I am also going to put in good. Because I do think he's a fun, entertaining character, and I think he has a lot of funny moments, and of course, the central thing about the show is that the show is about a bunch of his different inventions, and I think those are a lot of his inventions are very creative and fun and make for entertaining episodes. But I don't think I'd be able to say any higher than this for Dexter. I mean, this is just kind of what I think about Dexter's Lab in general. I like it, I don't love it, and that kind of follows suit for just about everything about it. Next we have Johnny Bravo, who I personally think is a great main character. Specifically, Johnny Bravo is a comedy first and foremost, more than anything else, and I find him personally absolutely hilarious. Is he the most likable protagonist? That's debatable, honestly. He's kind of an asshole in some ways, but he always gets his comeuppance for whatever he does wrong, and he is very, very funny. He's a funny character because of a bunch of the jokes he tells with him, but he's also a funny character to see lose. So whatever the case, I think he's just a very entertaining character. Also, I think the having this kind of Elvis impersonating himbo kind of lead character is just kind of a fun. It just leads to a fun character. I don't really have that much to say about Cow or Weasel. It's interesting that they have Cow in here, but not Chicken. I'm gonna. Some of these decisions for who the main characters on these series are going to be interesting to me, so we'll see as we go. With that being said, I think from what I remember, Cow is fine, but I do remember actually liking Weasel at least a bit. I don't have that much to say about either of them. I mean, if I'm being honest, I think Cow and Chicken and I Am Weasel are fine for what they are, but they just aren't really shows for me. Okay, we're gonna get some top-loaded picks right here, because I think for now Blossom is going right to the top. As the leader of the Powerpuff Girls, I think she's the most level-headed of the group, but she's also still a very entertaining character in her own right, because she is the leader of the Powerpuff Girls, but honestly, I think one of her fatal flaws as a character that leads to her being more well-rounded and interesting is the fact that she kind of thinks that she is perfect, but she also fairly often makes mistakes. So she's not as perfect as she might like you to believe, but that honestly overall makes her a more interesting and compelling character. Also, this, I'm not sure how much of a controversial opinion this is. Blossom is actually my favorite of the three Powerpuff Girls. I think Bubbles and Buttercup are also both very entertaining characters, but I think I personally relate to Blossom more than the other ones. Maybe because she's a little bit more reserved, a little bit more like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I can exactly articulate why she's my favorite of the Powerpuff Girls, but she is. I mean, I don't think she always has been. I think when I was younger, I would have chosen. When I was really young, I would have chosen Buttercup. But then a little later than that, I would have changed. I think I changed to Bubbles. But for the last like half decade or more or so, I actually changed over to Blossom, and she's been my favorite ever since. Next up, Eddie from Ed, Ed and Eddie is immediately going up here as well. I think he's just an incredibly funny, entertaining character. He is an asshole, sure, but he's honestly one of the funniest, probably one of the funniest characters Cartoon Network's ever had. I mean, Ed, Ed and Eddie is one of the best comedies Cartoon Network's ever aired. One of my absolute favorites in that regard. And Eddie is just such a perfect lead character for it. He's kind of a he's not kind of a jerk. He's genuinely just a pretty big jerk, but he's not just a jerk. He has other qualities about him that make him more interesting than that. But I do think that the biggest thing with Eddie is he's just like this very self-righteous, greedy, um, very narcissistic character that almost always gets what he deserves at the end of every episode. It's just, I don't know. I really like characters that I find funny, and Eddie is just an incredibly funny character to me. Next up, we have Courage, who I also love, but I don't think I love Courage as much as Eddie or Blossom. I think they're all great characters, but I just think there's a little more entertainment value to me with Eddie and a little more of a dynamic character with Blossom. No, Courage is also a dynamic character as well. I don't know. When it gets to the top of the list, it's all that is where it really comes down to just like arbitrary comparisons at this point. Like just like, oh, they're all great, so now you just have to nitpick which one's your favorite. And for Courage, I just think he's a really very likable character, very rootable character. You want to see him win. He's just a very kind, sympathetic character, but he's also a very entertaining character at the same time. Very fun. I mean, his main thing is he's scared of almost everything, but despite that, he still steps up to the plate and helps, well, I was gonna say his family, mostly Muriel, sometimes Eustace. Sometimes Eustace is the one who is inflicting the reason why he is scared, but he's just a very charming, lovable, rootable character. Mike from Mike, Lou, and Og. I saw a couple episodes of this a long time ago. From what I remember, she's fine. I remember she was kind of just like this rich girl who was learning to understand the people in like lower economic classes than her. Seems like an interesting enough character from what I remember, but I don't really have that much to say about her. Honestly, I'd probably put Sheep from Sheep in the Big City in a similar vote. I actually watched a couple episodes of this. It was either last year or earlier this year for the first time. Before that point, I've never seen any Sheep in the Big City. But from what I remember, he gets the job done. He's a fine central character for what the show is going for, but honestly, you can only get so high when it comes to a non-speaking character. I mean, you can create great non-speaking characters. What immediately comes to mind is like Gromit from Wallace and Gromit and Sean from Shaun the Sheep, which honestly, I just think Shaun the Sheep is a better, kind of an equivalently better version than Sheep in the Big City. They have distinct differences among them, but for a sheep themed cartoon with a sheep themed protagonist or sheep protagonist, I think Shaun the Sheep is better than Sheep in the Big City. That being said, he's fine, from what I remember. Otto from Time Squad is a good protagonist. I think I'd put him about here. He's a very just like smart kid. The whole thing is like about the show is he's starts out in an orphanage, and then Buck Tudrussel and Lair 2000 save him from the orphanage and have him join their like time traveling shenanigans to like fix problems throughout history that need to be realigned. His main purpose is to be like the basically kind of like almost the exposition dump for those kinds of situations. You go to a certain time period, meet a certain historical figure, or end up in a certain like historic event, and then Otto basically explains what's going on. But beyond that, he's a nice character, and he's a very intelligent character, which if you want a show about history, it is a very good idea to have a character be able to explain what's going on to the audience, especially if it's to a young audience. So yeah, I think Otto is a good main character. Samurai Jack, I think, goes up to here. Like, Jack is a man of few words, but honestly, he's such a cool character that I don't think he has to say enough, like that much, to be immediately a very likable character. But he's also just beyond that. He's a genuinely good guy. He likes to help people. He likes to think about the greater good. I mean, there's various situations throughout the show where he could have gotten back to the past and saved the world much earlier, but situations arise and he has some situations like, oh, you have to choose between going back to the past or saving these people, and he always prefers saving the people. I just think he's a very admirable character, and also very cool. Samurai Jack, really good character. I think Grimm is also just immediately shooting up to this tier for me. I don't want to load the top tier with too many characters. Honestly, he's going to the top for me so far. Grimm is an interesting juxtaposition for a Grim Reaper style character, because when you think of a Grim Reaper style character, you either think of a character that's very dark and brooding and evil, or one that's just very silent and just like very few words spoken, just like to represent like the silence of that comes with death, I suppose, the quiet that comes with that. Grim is none of those things. He's he's just a very, very funny character. He's loud. I mean, everyone in Billy and Mandy is loud to an extent. He's actually not nearly as loud as Billy is, but he's honestly, in comparison between the three protagonists of Billy and Mandy, which is interesting that Billy and Mandy themselves are not on here as well, but I think they're just trying to pick one character each, and I did not make this tier list, so I'm just going with whoever is on here. Grim is probably the second loudest of the main group in the show. I just think beyond that, as I said, he's a very funny character. He's kind of like sometimes the pseudo voice of reason, which is very interesting coming from Death. I don't know. He's also surprisingly fun-loving and full of life sometimes for a Grim Reaper style character, and also seems to very much enjoy his job. That's one thing. He kind of revels in taking people's lives, which is kind of dark, but the kind of like dark comedy Billy and Mandy is, I think, makes that more. I don't know. Keeps it to where it's still entertaining despite how dark it might seem. I don't know. Grimm's just a very funny character and one I enjoy a great deal. Hector Con Carne. I like him. He's a funny character. I mean, I think the theme song of the show explains it well enough. He's a very self-righteous, arrogant, full of himself, way ideas way too big than he could handle kind of villain. And he always gets in way over his head, thinks like, oh, there's nothing that could stop me in this situation. It's foolproof. Then he obviously loses because he didn't think about this evil plan nearly as much as he thought he did, and then he loses. He's a fun character, but honestly, comparing Billy and Mandy and Evil Con Carne and also Grim to Hector, I could obviously see why Billy and Mandy lasted much longer of the two. I think it's interesting. I think that Hector and Ghastly appeared in like one episode of Billy and Mandy, as Scar became a more recurrent character in the series as a whole. But I think that was a good decision if I had to pick one, because Scar is my favorite character in Evil Con Carne, anyways. I guess just leave it with me saying that I think Hector is a good character, good protagonist. This is actually not accurate with Hector, but who cares? I think it was a clever thing in my head when I came up with it. Even if some of these were protagonists are actually villains, who cares? It's just for the fun pun in the name of the tier. Whatever happened to Robot Jones? Or more specifically to say for short, Robot Jones themselves. I would put in. Honestly, if I was ranking the show Robot Jones, I'd probably put it in the good tier. But Robot Jones as a character, I'd actually put up here. I think Robot is a very fun character. Like seeing Robot learn all the different things about humans and all the different things about robots and all the way a robot navigates human society through all the different misadventures that they go on. I think it's just a very entertaining thing to watch. And he's also just a very he has a, for a robotic character, he has a lot of childlike whimsy, surprisingly enough. I don't know. There's just something very innocent and charming about Robot that I really enjoy. Also, I'll say about the whole thing with Robot is the fact that they had like the more like talk text to speech voice in the first season and have the more human child voice in the second season. I personally think that both voices have their merits. I think I prefer the original text to speech voice, but I think regardless, Robot is a very fun character. Nigel Uno from Codename Kids Next Door. We'll see where he goes from here, but for now, I think I'm gonna put number one in the top of the greater good tier. As like a James Bond kid parody character, I think he's just incredibly entertaining. Just a very he's a very strict, by the book, follow the rules kind of leader protagonist character, and I think that he serves that role very well. I don't know. Kids Next Door is just a funny show, and I think Nigel can be funny in and of himself a lot of the time, but I think some of the things that makes him the funniest is his like bouncing off of the other operatives, the other characters in the show. I just think Nigel is a very well-rounded, entertaining character that I don't know. I really hope we get Galactic Kids Next Door one day. Cartoon Arc, please give Mr. Warburton that opportunity. I would love to see more of the Kids Next Door. That rhymed unintentionally. Coop from Megas XLR. I mean, in my villains ranking, I didn't have a lot to say about the villains of Megas XLR, but I do think I have seen enough of Coop to be able to rank him. In which, off the top of my head, I'm going to put him right here. I think he's a fun character. He's a very chill character, pretty funny from what I remember. The main scene I remember with him is when he used Megas to smash the DMV. That's just a fun scene to me. I don't really have that much else to say about him. He's just a fun, chill dude. I should really get back to watching more Mega Six Lore at some point, though. It's a fun show. Blue from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Personally, if I made this list, I probably would put Mac here. Like, I feel like Mac is the protagonist of Foster's Home, while Blue is like more of the mascot. But if Blue's here, I'm ranking Blue. What to say about Blue? He's a character I'm very mixed on, honestly. You know what? I'm gonna put him up in this tier. At least that might sound contradictory to what I'm saying right now. With all things considered, he's kind of an asshole. He's not the most pleasant guy to be around. But with that being said, he is also still a very funny character. He might be kind of a jerk, but he also is still very has a very fun screen presence about him, and I would be lying if I didn't say I didn't think a lot of his jokes throughout the show were funny. I don't know. With that being said, if if I was ranking Mac instead of Blue, I think it would still probably be in the same tier anyways. Above Dexter probably, but not that far removed from where this character currently is. Next we have Ami from Hi Hi Puffy Ami Yumi, which I think is interesting that we don't have both of them here. Because they kind of share the title, but I guess that's a similar thing with The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy as well. But if I'm ranking Ami by herself, I'm going to be putting her. I'll put her here. I think Hi Hi Puffy Ami Yumi is a very fun show that I'm very nostalgic for. It's a But honestly, more than anything else, it's a show I find more of a guilty pleasure as time goes on, because I honestly think quality wise, I don't think it's the best. But with that being said, it's just something I think is a lot of fun and I'm very nostalgic for. With that, like, about Ami herself, I think she's just a very cutesy, fun character. I really like this kind of just energetic, upbeat, happy characters. It's just an archetype I really enjoy, and Ami is no different. I also just think she's a very fun character to watch. She's a simple character, but one I enjoy the screen presence of quite a bit. Honestly, I think I'd rank her above Dexter. Yeah. This is my list. I can do whatever I want with it. Juniper Lee from the Life and Times of Juniper Lee. I think I'd put here. As I said, similarly with Coop from Megas XLR, I watched a lot of Juniper Lee a long time ago when I was a kid, and I've watched a couple episodes since then to refamiliarize myself with it over the years. But I don't think I remember the villains enough to rank them, but I do think I remember June herself enough to rank her. And from what I remember, she's a very good main character. She's just like I mean, for the kind of show it is, she's kind of the expected protagonist. Like, you're the chosen one, you must defeat the evil, but you also need to. I forgot if she had to keep everything about her life a secret or not. She probably did. That kind of follows suit in this kind of like living a double life. Oh, she doesn't really live a double life. Like, but that kind of whole kind of like child hero character who fights crime but also has to go to school. That's usually what they have to do with this kind of situations. And I think for that kind of show, she serves that role well. With that being said, I don't think I have a ton to say about her beyond that, but I do like her. And I will say this as well. I do like her as a character more than Disney Channel's Jake Long from American Dragon. Which I just bring up because they're very similar shows that just very much remind me of each other. Laszlo from Camp Laszlo, I think, is another very fun character that I'll put there. I mean, he's just a very hyperactive, happy-go-lucky character who's just trying to spread as much joy as possible in this kind of dismally dull summer camp. But honestly, the main reason I'm putting him here is I think he's just very funny. I am very warm towards characters who can make me laugh, and Laszlo has made me laugh a lot when I used to watch the show. Adam Lyon from My Gym Partner's a Monkey. I get it. I get the whole joke. His name's Adam Lyon. Oh, he has the name of an animal, so let's send him to the school for animals. I get it, but honestly, as a protagonist, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like him. Overall, I am fine. I think My Gym Partner's a Monkey is fine as a whole, but I just don't think Adam is a very fun character to watch. From what I remember, he's kind of whiny, kind of whiny, kind of annoying, kind of just not a character I root much for, honestly. I mean, it's been a very long time since I've seen the show, so maybe if I were to revisit it, I'd have a different opinion. But as for now, I just don't really care for him. I mean, I don't hate him. I don't think I hate any of the characters on the well, maybe a couple, but we'll get to some of those eventually. But I think for what he is, he's just not interesting enough for me to carry his weight in the show. I don't know, he's just also kind of bland to me? I don't know. I don't think I have that much more to say about him than that. But next we have Ben Tennyson from Ben 10. This one's an interesting one because I do think Ben gets the job done as a good enough main character, but just kind of like a character like Blue. I don't think he's the most likable character in the original series all the time, but he does get the job done, and honestly, I do think he improves in a later series. So if we're grading him all together, I think I'll actually put him about here. I think Ben 10 is a good character, but honestly, I think the most interesting thing about him, more than any of his character himself, is his powers and all of his alien transformations. I think those are awesome, but Ben himself, not that much. Just he's good. He serves his purpose well, but I don't have that much to say about him. Rodney from Squirrel Boy. He's a mildly amusing character. I remember thinking he was funny. Honestly, shouldn't Andy be listed as the main character of Squirrel Boy? I think, or maybe there's also a thing where they share the role, but whatever. Rodney's listed here. As I said, I'll list the characters who are listed here. He's fine. I remember him being decently funny, and I also just think Richard Horvitz is honestly, one of my favorite voice actors. So anything with him is going to be something I think I would like. But with that being said, I don't think that Rodney is one of my favorite characters that he's played. I don't think I have that much more to say about him beyond that, though. Sonny Bridges from Class of 2000, on the other hand, I think from what I remember, I think he's a great character. I'd put him up in this tier. He's just a very good teacher. He's a chill guy, loves music, loves to share his passion for music with his students. Very good singer. Just a fun, chill guy. I don't think he's not a particularly incredibly storied and deep character, but for what he is, he's very good. He's just a very thoroughly entertaining character that I enjoy the screen presence of a lot. Next up, we have Chowder from Chowder, who I also really like. Of course, Chowder is a comedy, and that means that he should get extra points for being funny to me because I love a good joke, and Chowder is a very funny character, of course, because he's from a very funny show. But as for more into his personality, he's very young, very juvenile, and has a lot of things to learn. Of course, that's why he's with Mong Dal and is doing his apprenticeship with him to learn about cooking. I don't know. He's just a very young, wide-eyed, optimistic protagonist. And I think he serves his purpose in the show very well. He's not my absolute favorite character, but he's a very fun character. I do like him quite a bit. Next up, we have Golly Gopher from Reanimated and Out of Jimmy's Head. Shouldn't this be Jimmy? I mean, that's a live action character, so maybe it doesn't count as much, but whatever. He's just kind of like a Mickey Mouse XP. From what I remember, he's fine. I know some people hated these. Honestly, I haven't seen them in a very long time, so I haven't been able to reevaluate them. But I'll put him here. I like his character design. I don't think I have very much else to say about him beyond that, though. Flapjack from The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, I will put also in the good tier. I think I'd put him here. He's not one of my favorite characters in the channel, but I think he's fun. I think he is a very entertaining character, and I do think he's occasionally very funny as well. Just like Chowder, I think he's actually very similar, actually, where he's almost... I'm not sure if he's like exactly on an apprenticeship with Knuckles, but he's kind of just like one of his crewmates, I guess, in a way. Father figure almost, in a very similar situation to Chowder, even though it's not exactly the same thing. But he also has a very similar personality. He's very wide-eyed, optimistic, very juvenile, very childlike, because he's a child, of course. But I just think he's a very fun character as a whole. With that being said, I do think occasionally he can be a little annoying, but honestly, I don't think that's the worst thing ever. He's not annoying all the time. He is a very enjoyable and cute character a lot of the time. And I do think he's a generally overall more likable than Blue is. So I'm going to put Flapjack here. Zack Saturday from The Secret Saturdays, I am going to put here. I think he's a good protagonist for what the show is going for. But if I'm being honest, something I'll say right now is I prefer either more balanced shows or more comedic shows than just ones that are pure action. I can love a character from a show that's almost pure action, as you can see Samurai Jack's up here. I love Samurai Jack. But Zack Saturday, I think he's good. I think he gets the job done for the show he's in. But I don't think I have too much more to say about him beyond that. Honestly, I think I'll rank some of the other action show characters that are coming up soon to now as well. Rex from Generator Rex, I think, is a little better than Zack. I honestly think he's actually more likable than Ben 10, actually. I think he's a better central character. I do overall like Ben 10 as a franchise more than Generator Rex, but I do think Rex is just a generally more likable character to me than Ben. With that being said, he's another action series protagonist, so he's not going to be as many points for me as some of the more comedic main characters we have on here, or some of the more balanced main characters we have on here. So yeah, I think that's a good place to rank him. And then we have, in a similar category as well, Lance from Symbiotic Titan, who I also like from what I remember. But honestly, if I'm being fair to this list, Symbiotic Titan is a show I really need to revisit and watch all of, and I haven't done so yet. So I'm actually going to put him down here. If I were to rank him, it'd definitely be somewhere in this tier for now, but I don't think I have that close of familiarity with them, like either from like the time investment I've had with some of these characters, even if I haven't seen their shows in forever, or also just like the recency of remembering a lot more details about it. Honestly, while we're at it, I think I'm also going to put Elliot from Earth here because I've seen like a couple episodes from Elliot from Earth, but I don't think I've seen enough to be able to properly rank him either. So I'll just put him there. Finn from Adventure Time. I adore Adventure Time. It's genuinely like a top 5 favorite cartoon of all time for me. With that being said, I think I'm just putting Finn in the top of the greater good tier for now, because I do love him as a character, but I'm specifically saving this top tier for the characters I absolutely adore. So, in the grand scheme of this list, I do have to make some separation between these top two tiers, and a lot of that just comes down to personal preference. With that being said, for a very for the kind of like almost like heroic young boy pseudo shonen protagonist that Finn is, I think he's great. He starts up as very childish, optimistic, loves to adventure, loves to fight, very like ready to go at any moment to like just save the day or go on a quest or do whatever. And as the series goes on, he matures and develops and grows into a more rich, well developed, complete character. Yeah, I think Finn is a great character. Just not an absolute personal favorite of mine, but that at this point just comes up to personal preference, like I said. On the other hand, I adore regular show as well, but Mordecai himself, honestly, is kind of in a similar boat to Blue, where I think he's a. I mean, but that being said, I think Mordecai is funnier than Blue, though. Even though Mordecai at times might even be an even bigger asshole. But with that being said, I think he's such an entertaining character, regardless, that I'm going to put him right here. Anyways, I mean, that's the whole thing with Mordecai. He's kind of just like famously a debated Cartoon Network protagonist, mostly because of his relationship with Margaret and CJ that kind of weighed him down in a lot of people's eyes. Also, how even though Mordecai started out as the more mature of between him and Rigby, Rigby ultimately grew a lot more, and by the end of the series was by far and away the more mature character of the two. Which I think is a very interesting dichotomy, and I don't think was a bad writing decision if it was intentional. But with that being said, I don't think I could put Mordecai higher than this. As I said, love regular show. Mordecai is also a very entertaining character in his own right, but I don't think I could put him in any tier higher than this. I did see a good amount of Robotomy back in the day from the limited amount of episodes we had, and from what I remember about it, I don't hate him. I don't even remember what his name is, honestly. I'm gonna put him here more so for just the name of the tier because he is. I mean, if I had anything more significant to say about him, I would have said it right now. Even though I do remember watching a good amount of Robotomy back in the day, I just don't have that much to say about him, honestly. I think one of the main reasons I didn't rank Lance, even though I've probably seen like a handful of episodes of both Robotomy and Symbiotic Titan, is Symbiotic Titan's a lot more of a story-driven cartoon, and I feel like that comes into to play with its characters a lot more as they develop throughout the show. But for a purely comedic one, as short-lived as Robotomy is, I don't think I have giving it a revisit would give this character that much credit. I mean, I genuinely think he's the only character on this list that I do not remember the name of. And I think that's saying something. Oh no, this. We'll get to Along with the Royals, I guess, which I have also seen in full, but we'll get there. I believe this is Alfei from Problem Solvers. Don't like the character design. Very annoying voice. Not very likable. I don't think there's next to anything to like about this character. I mean, people shit on problem solvers all the time, so it's nothing new, but at the same time, I don't think it's unwarranted. Would I say I hate problem solvers or this character? No. It's just not something I'd actively seek out to watch ever again, honestly. It's just not a pleasant experience, even though I don't have a viscerally negative reaction to it. I mean, but this category in the tier list isn't viscerally negative anyways, so whatever. You know what? I'm gonna get to Festro first before I get to Gumball because Secret Man, Fort Awesome, and Problem Solvers are very linked in my mind as well. That being said, from what I remember from Secret Man, Fort Awesome, I actually thought Festro was a fine protagonist. I mean, as a whole, I would say I did not like Secret Man Fort Awesome, but honestly, I think Festro was kind of one of those slightly better aspects of it. He's kind of like a surfer dude kind of character with his like voice and personality more than anything else, but honestly, even though I don't have a ton to say about him, I think he's fine. He's serviceable. I don't dislike him. And honestly, among the other characters in the main cast of the show, I don't think any of the other ones would have made a better protagonist, so I don't think I'd put him in this tier, with that being said. Gumball Watterson. This little shit. I say endearingly because I think he's a very entertaining character. I honestly think Gumball's a more entertaining character than Mordecai is, and I think I'm actually gonna put him up here. I think he actually, surprisingly enough, develops a little more than Mordecai does. Like, in his relationship with Penny, honestly, comparing, like, Gumball's relationships with Mordecai's relationships, it's not even close. I think Gumball's a lot more, like, not fleshed out. I think they're both fleshed out, but the fact that Gumball was able to actually have a ultimately good relationship with Penny, and Mordecai fumbled all of his relationships, honestly, kind of puts him. I mean, that doesn't mean he's a better character, but to me, it's just emblematic of him. He's still a little shit. He's still not the most likable character in the world at all times, but I think he's just a far more funny, more entertaining character to me. And as I said, it's just all up to my personal preference. I could put these characters wherever I want on this list, and I just think Gumball's a very fun protagonist. Honestly, in a lot of ways, he reminds me of Blue, but he's a lot funnier. So, and he's also a lot more well developed as a whole, I believe, so I give him a lot more credit for that. Also, cannot wait for the new season of Gumball to come out. I'm so excited for it. Really hope they continue the Void storyline and don't just drop it, but we'll see about that, I guess. Alright, next up we have Uncle Grandpa, who I think is a fun character. I don't know, I think he's funny. I'm putting him here. He's just very jolly, very aloof, very also kind of considerate. His whole thing is helping children with their problems. Not just children, helping people with their problems. And I think that's not what they do in every episode of Uncle Grandpa when it comes from the basic premise. He's a very helpful character. I mean, does he help people in the most effective ways? No, but his heart's mostly in the right place. And I also think he's a very funny character, so I'm giving him a lot of leeway here. Steven from Steven Universe. This might be controversial to some people, but I love him. He is a very sweet character, very charming, very well developed, very I don't know. I think he was a great main character through the original series, but even though a lot of people didn't like or kind of mixed on Future, I think it did a lot for his character and actually did wonders for fleshing him out even further and making him even more interesting and more well developed. I don't know. I mean, Steven Universe is debatably my favorite cartoon of all time, so it makes sense that the protagonist of one of my favorite cartoons of all time is going to be a character I love. But I love Steven Universe, and I love as a show and a character. So, just nothing but praise. Clarence from Clarence is a character I like. Honestly, kind of is a similar camp to Chowder to me, being this very young, innocent, naive goofball who's just very funny and very entertaining to watch. Oh, he's just a charming character. I know Clarence is a very mixed cartoon to a lot of people, kind of like Uncle Grandpa as well, if I think about it. But I just think he's a very fun character regardless. I mean, the interesting thing with Clarence to me is I think it's a great show, but whenever I make these like kind of cartoon arc lists, I always rank him a little lower than I probably think I should. But honestly, on this list, I think this feels about right for him. Yeah, yeah, I think that's what I have to say about Clarence. Wirt from Over the Garden Wall, I also think is a very good main character. With that being said, I think he loses a few points for me for. I mean, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but I do enjoy spending substantial amount of time with characters. That's one of the main reasons that I like TV characters more than movie characters, because oftentimes you can spend a lot more time with characters from TV shows than movies. Of course, Over the Garden Wall is a cartoon with like a good amount of episodes, but it's only 10 episodes. It's a very short series. You can marathon it like under 2 hours. That being said, Wirt is a very good main character for the series. That being said, I don't think I have too much more to say about him. Just that, though. Alright, next up we have Grizz from We Bare Bears, who I think is a great main character. Honestly, yeah, I'm putting him up here. He's just a very charming, very fun-loving character. I mean, he's a little bit of a goofball, a little bit of a troublemaker, but he's a kind of also has a heart of gold, so it's hard to stay mad at him for very long, even when he makes mistakes. He's just effortlessly fun. He's just a character when he's around, and whenever he's on screen, it's like, oh, that's a fun character to have on screen. I don't know. He's just a very likable character. That's the best way I could describe Grizz. Is he's just likable. I don't know. He's just like a big old teddy bear. That might have been the intention with this character. He was designed around like the kind of feeling a teddy bear might give you. I don't know. Love Weeber Bears. Love Grizz. Next up, we have the King from Long Live the Royals, who, from what I remember, I don't actively dislike him or anything like that. But with that being said, I don't remember if he was actually the main character of this 4 episode miniseries that I saw a decade ago. All things considered, I think I'm putting him on this tier, but at the top of this tier. Yeah, don't really have that much to say about him. I think he's a fine character, which theoretically should put him in the tier above, but honestly, I don't think he would have made for a great protagonist if the series went on for any longer, so I think I'm putting him here. Next up, we have Prohias from Mighty Magiswords, who I think, as I've been saying in these other videos, despite everything that the creator of the show has done, I'm going to rank him as a character on his own merits. And from his own merits, I actually think he's a very likable character. He's a very funny character. He's a very funny, very likable character. And I'm going to rank him here, but honestly, I don't like thinking about Mighty Magiswords that much anymore because I just have the association with the creator and the things he did in my mind, so I think I'm going to leave that there. Next up, we have KO from OKKO Let's Be Heroes, who I think is a wonderful protagonist. I actually like him more than Finn. Honestly, I think I'm going to put him up here, in this tier. Yeah, honestly, I love KO. He's just a very wide-eyed, optimistic, fun-loving character. He loves to learn. He wants to learn to be a great superhero. He's just I don't know. I love those kinds of fun characters. I just love fun-loving, kind characters. He's also a little bit of a troublemaker at times. No, he gets into trouble at times, but I wouldn't exactly call him a troublemaker. That's more just a rad probably drags him into the trouble, but he does get in trouble sometimes like that. I would say more than anything else, he's just also a little bit of a goofball. He's a very cutesy character, but he's also a very well-developed character who grows throughout the series. Yep, love OKKO and love KO himself. He's a great character. Next, we have Craig from Craig of the Creek, who is another character I absolutely adore. Honestly, I think Cartoon Network started making some of its best protagonists of all time, just like near the end of its life cycle, I guess. I mean, Cartoon Network's not completely dead, but honestly, they've slowed down to the point where they kind of might as well be at this point, but we'll see what the future has to hold with that. But Craig is just a very good main character. He's very funny, he's very likable, he's very well developed. He's just a very honestly his has an interesting personality for the protagonist of the show he's in because he's a very his whole thing is he wants to map out the entire creek. That's his whole thing. Which means I don't know, he loves to draw. And I like to draw too, so I guess I have that kind of what do you call it? That kind of relatability to the character. I can relate to him very well in that regard. And he's just also a very nice character, a very outgoing character, loves to make friends. I mean, that's why he has all these adventures in the creek. He doesn't want to just map locations, but he also wants to meet all the people there because he's just interested in getting to know them all. I don't know. Craig of the Creek is fantastic. And I feel like it's, despite the fact that it ran for 5 full seasons, I still think it's very underrated, and I honestly wish it would have lasted even longer than it was. But honestly, at this point, beggars can't be choosers, and it ran for a long time comparatively to other recent cartoons anyways, so whatever. Craig of the Creek is a fantastic show, and Craig is a great main character. Onion from Apple and Onion. You'd think they'd put Apple, because he comes first in the title. That being said, I've seen a decent amount of episodes of Apple and Onion, and honestly, I thought it was fine, but Onion honestly didn't really do much of anything for me as a character. He was mildly amusing at times, but also I thought he was kind of annoying at other times, so whatever. Next, we have Oscar the Elephant from Summer Camp Island, who I honestly really like. He's a very cute, charming character. And I think I'd put him here. I mean, at first it took me a little bit to warm up to Summer Camp Island. I kind of brushed it off at first, but then I retried it after a while, and I actually ended up really enjoying the show. And Oscar is just a really fun, very honestly, compared to some of these other protagonists on this list, he's very specific. Like he likes things to be organized and in their place. He follows the rules. He's just a very good kid. And honestly, his personality kind of matches the atmosphere of the show very well because Summer Camp Island as a whole is just a very chill, like nice, almost dreamlike show. It's just a very good vibe. It's a show that's really fun to just kind of relax to. And I think Oscar is very emblematic of that tone. Next up, we have Victor from Victor and Valentino, who I honestly think is fine. I think he could be fairly funny, but it honestly reminds me of Blue in the ways of he's also kind of a jerk, kind of annoying, but honestly, I don't think he's nearly as entertaining as Blue is. From what I remember, I think he's fine, and I don't really have that much else to say about him. Next, we have Mao Mao from Mao Mao Heroes of Pure Heart, who I think is actually a great main character. And I'd put him. Honestly, I'd put him here. He's just a very. He tries to be like this, like, brooding, badass hero, but he's also a cute cat, so he kind of has that, like, dichotomy to him. And he's just a very. I don't know. He's just a very entertaining character. I think his interactions with the other main characters, Badgerclops and Adorabat, are just great. He's just very funny, very entertaining. Honestly, in a lot of ways, kind of reminds me of Puss in Boots from Shrek, which is also another character I love. So that's also a compliment. I really wish Mao Mao could have gotten that second season. I know I keep saying a lot of similar things in a lot of these tier list videos I've been making, but I don't know. It's just one of the things that comes to mind when I think about some of these shows. And last but not least, we have Tulip Olsen from Infinity Train, who I think is actually going to go up here in the top tier. Right here. Yeah, I mean, as I said before, Infinity Train is genuinely one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows ever. Anybody who hasn't seen it should seek it out as soon as possible. It is fantastic. And Tulip is the main character of actually only the first season of Infinity Train. The whole thing about it is the protagonists. No, almost all the characters switch from season to season, besides a couple. And Tulip is the protagonist of the first season. The whole thing is she's a child going through the divorce of her parents, and she doesn't really know how to grapple with that. So she has to go on this weird, mysterious train that kind of helps her figure that out in a way, interestingly enough. Like, it's a very surreal, high sci-fi location. Honestly, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it. I think you should seek it out as soon as possible. But Tulip is a great main character, and I highly recommend Infinity Train. Alright, so I guess that's our tier list for the main characters of Cartoon Network. With my absolute favorites being Courage from Courage Cowardly Dog, Tulip from Infinity Train, Blossom from the Powerpuff Girls, Eddie from Ed, Edd n Eddy, Grim from The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, KO from OKKO, Craig from Craig of the Creek, and Steven from Steven Universe. Alright, that just about does it for this stream. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.